Ezekiel Chapter 28. The word of Jehovah came again to me, saying, Son of man, say to the prince of Tyre, Thus says the Lord Jehovah, because your heart is lifted up, and you have said, I am a god, I sit in the seat of God in the midst of the seas, yet you are a man and not a god, although you set your heart as if it were the heart of God. Indeed you are wiser than Daniel, there is no secret hidden from you. By your wisdom and by your understanding you have made your wealth and accumulated gold and silver in your treasuries. By your great wisdom and by your trading you have increased your wealth, but your heart has become lifted up because of your wealth. Therefore thus says the Lord Jehovah, because you have set your heart as if it were the heart of God. Therefore I am about to bring strangers upon you, the most ruthless of the nations, and they will draw their swords against the beauty of your wisdom, and they will defile your splendor. To the pit they will bring you down, and in the heart of the seas you will die the death of those who are slain. Will you indeed say in the presence of the one who slays you, I am God? But you are a man and not a god in the hand of the one who wounds you. You will die the death of the uncircumcised by the hand of strangers, for I have spoken, declares the Lord Jehovah. Moreover the word of Jehovah came to me, saying, Son of man, take up a lamentation for the king of Tyre, and say to him, Thus says the Lord Jehovah, O you who sealed up perfection, full of wisdom and perfect in beauty. You were in Eden, the garden of God. Every precious stone was your covering, sardius, topaz, diamond, chrysolite, onyx, jasper, sapphire, carbuncle, and emerald, with gold. The workmanship of your tambourines and your pipes was prepared with you on the day that you were created. You were the anointed cherub who covered the ark, indeed I set you, so that you were upon the holy mountain of God, you walked up and down in the midst of the stones of fire. You were perfect in your ways from the day that you were created, until unrighteousness was found in you. By the abundance of your trading they filled your midst with violence, and you sinned. So I cast you out as profane from the mountain of God, and I destroyed you, O covering cherub, from the midst of the stones of fire. Your heart was lifted up because of your beauty, you corrupted your wisdom by reason of your brightness. I cast you to the ground, I presented you before kings that they may look at you. By the multitude of your iniquities and the unrighteousness of your trading you have profaned your sanctuaries. Therefore I sent forth fire from your midst, it consumed you, and I reduced you to ashes upon the earth in the sight of all those who look at you. All who know you among the peoples are astonished at you. You have become a source of terror, and you will be no more forever. And the word of Jehovah came to me, saying, Son of man, set your face toward Sidon, and prophesy against it. And say, Thus says the Lord Jehovah, Indeed I am against you, O Sidon, and I will be glorified in your midst. And they will know that I am Jehovah when I have executed judgments in her, and I am sanctified in her. And I will send pestilence into her and blood into her streets, and the wounded will fall in her midst with the sword against her from all around, and they will know that I am Jehovah. And there will no longer be a pricking briar or a painful thorn for the house of Israel, inflicted by any of those around them who despised them. And they will know that I am the Lord Jehovah. Thus says the Lord Jehovah, when I have gathered the house of Israel from the peoples among whom they are scattered and have been sanctified in them in the sight of the nations, they will dwell in their own land which I gave to my servant Jacob. And they will dwell securely in it, and they will build houses and plant vineyards. They will dwell securely when I have executed judgments on all those surrounding them who despise them, and they will know that I am Jehovah their God. Ezekiel Chapter 29. In the 10th year, in the 10th month, on the 12th day of the month, the word of Jehovah came to me, saying, Son of man, set your face against Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, and prophesy against him and against all Egypt. Speak and say, Thus says the Lord Jehovah, Indeed I am against you, Pharaoh king of Egypt, the great monster that lies in the midst of his Nile streams, that said, My Nile belongs to me, I even made it for myself. But I will put hooks in your jaws, and I will cause the fish of your Nile streams to cling to your scales, and I will bring you up out of the midst of your Nile streams, with all the fish of your Nile streams clinging to your scales. And I will cast you out into the wilderness, you and all the fish of your Nile streams. You will fall on the open field, you will not be brought together or gathered. To the beasts of the earth and to the birds of the sky I have given you as food. That all the inhabitants of Egypt may know that I am Jehovah, because they have been a reed staff to the house of Israel. When they grasped you by your hand, you broke and tore all their shoulders, and when they leaned upon you, you shattered and made all their loins unsteady. Therefore thus says the Lord Jehovah, I am about to bring a sword upon you, and I will cut off from you man and beast. And the land of Egypt will be a desolation and a waste, and they will know that I am Jehovah. Because he has said, the Nile is mine, and I made it. Therefore, indeed, I am against you and your Nile streams, and I will make the land of Egypt an utter waste and desolation, from Migdol to Syene, even to the border with Ethiopia. No human foot will pass through it, not even an animal foot will pass through it, it will not be inhabited 40 years. And I will make the land of Egypt a desolation in the midst of desolate countries, and her cities will be the most desolate among ruined cities for 40 years. And I will scatter the Egyptians among the nations and disperse them among the countries. For thus says the Lord Jehovah, at the end of 40 years I will gather the Egyptians from among the peoples where they have been scattered. And I will turn the captivity of Egypt and bring them back to the land of Pathros, into the land of their origin. And there they will be a lowly kingdom. It will be the lowliest of the kingdoms. It will no longer lift itself up above the nations, and I will diminish them so that they will no longer rule the nations. And it will no longer be the confidence of the house of Israel, but rather a reminder of iniquity when they turn toward them. Then they will know that I am the Lord Jehovah. And in the 27th year, in the 1st month, on the 1st day of the month, the word of Jehovah came to me, saying, Son of man, Nebuchadrezzar the king of Babylon forced his army into hard labor against Tyre. Every head was made bald and every shoulder rubbed raw. Yet neither he nor his army had wages from Tyre for the labor that he had expended against it. Therefore thus says the Lord Jehovah, I am about to give the land of Egypt to Nebuchadrezzar the king of Babylon, and he will carry off her multitude and take her spoil and seize her plunder, and it will be the wages for his army. I have given him the land of Egypt as his recompense for which he labored, because they worked for me, declares the Lord Jehovah. In that day I will cause a horn to sprout for the house of Israel, and I will give you an open mouth in their midst. Then they will know that I am Jehovah. Ezekiel Chapter 30. The word of Jehovah came to me again, saying, Son of man, prophesy and say, Thus says the Lord Jehovah, Howl. Alas for the day! For the day has drawn near, even the day of Jehovah has drawn near, it will be a day of clouds, a time of doom for the nations. And a sword will come upon Egypt, and anguish will be in Ethiopia, when the slain will fall in Egypt, and they will take away her multitude, and her foundations will be broken down. Ethiopia, Put, Lud, all Arabia, Libya, and the children of the land of the covenant will fall by the sword with them. Thus says Jehovah, those who support Egypt will fall, and the pride of her strength will come down, they will fall by the sword within her, from Migdol to Syene, declares the Lord Jehovah. And they will be desolate in the midst of desolate countries, and her cities will be the most desolate among ruined cities. And they will know that I am Jehovah, when I have set fire to Egypt and all her helpers are destroyed. In that day messengers will go forth from before me in ships to make the confident Ethiopians afraid, and there will be anguish among them just as on the day of Egypt. For indeed it comes. Thus says the Lord Jehovah, I will also make the multitude of Egypt to cease by the hand of Nebuchadrezzar the king of Babylon. He and his people with him, the most ruthless of the nations, will be brought in to destroy the land, and they will draw their swords against Egypt and fill the land with the slain. And I will make the Nile streams dry and sell the land into the hands of evil men, and I will make the land and all that is in it desolate by the hand of strangers. I, Jehovah, have spoken. Thus says the Lord Jehovah, I will also destroy the idols, and I will make an end of the images from Memphis, and a prince from the land of Egypt will never again arise, and I will put fear into the land of Egypt. And I will make Pathros desolate and set fire to Zoan and execute judgments on Thebes. And I will pour out my wrath upon Sin, the stronghold of Egypt, and I will cut off the multitude in Thebes. And I will set fire to Egypt, Sin will writhe in anguish, and Thebes will be breached, and Memphis will have adversaries daily. The young men of On and Pibeseth will fall by the sword, and these cities will go into captivity. At Tapanhes also the day will withdraw itself, when I will break there the yokes of Egypt, and the pride of her strength will cease in her, she will be covered with a cloud, and her daughters will go into captivity. Thus I will execute judgments upon Egypt, and they will know that I am Jehovah. And in the 11th year, in the 1st month, on the 7th day of the month, the word of Jehovah came to me, saying, Son of man, I have broken the arm of Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, and indeed it has not been bound to apply healing medicines, nor firmly bandaged to bind it to be strong enough to grasp a sword. Therefore thus says the Lord Jehovah, Indeed I am against Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, and I will break both his arms, the strong arm and the one that was broken, and I will cause the sword to fall out of his hand. And I will scatter the Egyptians among the nations and disperse them among the countries. And I will strengthen the arms of the king of Babylon and put my sword in his hand, but I will break the arms of Pharaoh, and he will groan before him with the groanings of one who is being slain. And I will strengthen the arms of the king of Babylon, and the arms of Pharaoh will fall, and they will know that I am Jehovah, when I put my sword into the hand of the king of Babylon, and he will stretch it out over the land of Egypt. And I will scatter the Egyptians among the nations and disperse them among the countries. Then they will know that I am Jehovah. Ezekiel Chapter 31. And in the 11th year, in the 3rd month, on the 1st day of the month, the word of Jehovah came to me, saying, Son of man, say to Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, and to his multitude, Whom are you like in your greatness? Indeed Assyria was a cedar in Lebanon with beautiful branches and forest shade and great height, and its top shoots were among the thick boughs. Waters nourished it, the deep springs made it grow, its rivers flowed around the place it was planted, and it flowed out its channels to all the trees of the field. Therefore its height was exalted above all the trees of the field, and its boughs were multiplied, and its branches lengthened, because of abundant waters, as it spread. All the birds of the sky made their nests in its boughs, and all the beasts of the field bore their young under its branches, and in its shade all great nations dwelt. Thus it was beautiful in its greatness, in the length of its branches, for its roots were beside abundant waters. Cedars in the garden of God could not hide it, cypresses could not compare to its boughs, and plane trees could not equal its branches, no tree in the garden of God could compare to it in its beauty. I made it beautiful by the multitude of its branches, so that all the trees of Eden, which were in the garden of God, envied it. Therefore thus says the Lord Jehovah, because you are exalted in height it set its top shoots among the thick boughs, and its heart is lifted up in its height. Therefore I will deliver it into the hands of the mighty one of the nations, he will surely deal with it. I have driven it out according to its wickedness. And strangers, the most ruthless of the nations, have cut it down and left it on the mountains, and its branches have fallen into all the valleys, and its boughs lie broken by all the ravines of the land, and all the peoples of the earth have abandoned its shade and left it. Upon its fallen trunk all the birds of the sky will dwell, and upon its branches all the beasts of the field will be. This is so that none of the well-watered trees will exalt themselves in their height by setting their top shoots among the thick boughs, and none of the well-watered trees will stand next to them in their height, for all of them have been delivered to death, to the lowest parts of the earth among the children of men who descend into the pit. Thus says the Lord Jehovah, on the day it descended to Sheol I caused a mourning, I covered the deep springs for it, and I restrained its rivers, and the great waters were shut up. I also made Lebanon mourn for it, and all the trees of the field wilted on account of it. I made the nations quake at the sound of its fall when I cast it down to Sheol with those who descend into the pit. And all the trees of Eden, the choice and best of Lebanon, all who drink water, were comforted in the lowest parts of the earth. They also descended with it into Sheol to those who were slain by the sword, indeed to those who were its arm, who dwelt under its shade among the nations. Which among the trees of Eden then are you like in glory and in greatness? Yet you will be brought down with the trees of Eden to the lowest parts of the earth, you will lie among the uncircumcised, with those who were slain by the sword. This is Pharaoh and all his multitude, declares the Lord Jehovah.